as if it were two distinct rooms. Family table, conversation corner. So here at the corner, I want to invite our guest, Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Whatley. Mr. Chairman, it's great to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
Please sit down. Thanks for joining me. So for all you news hounds there, I'll get to the news in a second, but I want to ask the chairman something about his early life. As I understand it, you have master's degrees in religion and theology. What did those studies tell you, if anything, about your life in politics and how to view politics?
Well, I think the whole key is to help people. I think the whole key is what are we doing to make society better? What are we doing to make everything better? And it's really neat to understand a lot of what's going on in church on any given Sunday. But it's also neat to come at politics from a perspective of we need to do better. We need society to do better. How do we help?
How does forgiveness factor into current politics?
Well, I think it's absolutely essential. None of us are perfect.
Are we forgiving, though, in our political dialogue?
Well, I think that ultimately we get there, right? And I think the fact is that, right now, our politics is all about making America better and all about making the world better.
Mm-hmm. How would you grade President Trump's rhetoric on the forgiveness scale?
Look, I think what President Trump is doing is fighting every single day for every single family and every single community all across America. He has put together an America First agenda, which is resonating broadly with the American people. That's really where we want to come from. There's a reason that he did better among blacks, among Hispanics, among Asian Americans, among young voters and among women voters than Republican candidates have done in many, many years, because he has put together an agenda to help every single family and every single community. We're
going to get to those demographics in our conversation, I promise you. I was struck when the president sat down with the Atlantic magazine late in April. He said, "I run the country and the world." Does he run the world?
No, but I think we have an opportunity to be the leader of the free world. I think we have an opportunity to be a leader for the entire world. Look, America is the shining light on the hill. And we are a country that is always going to be a leader for freedom, and we're going to be advancing the human cause. That's the role that America has. It's a very unique place in the world.
And when he says, "I run the world," and you look at the situation in Ukraine and his evident frustration, what appears to be building with Vladimir Putin, how does that factor for you?
Well, President Trump wants peace. He made it very clear throughout the course of the campaign.
He wants to bring peace. And achieving it, two different things.
It is. And certainly right now what we're doing is we're going through paces with Russia, with Ukraine, trying to get them to the same table and trying to figure out a way that he can end this bloodshed. We're seeing 5,000 dead a week. That's too many. People have been killed for the last 3 years, and he wants to make sure that we get to a place where we're going to have an enduring peace.
Is it time to follow Lindsey Graham's lead and level sanctions against Russia?
Look, I think he's going to take a look at it. He's already said that he's going to take a look at it.
I mean, a serious look at it.
That's exactly what he just said over the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Speaking about over the weekend, Rand Paul said this weekend that the spending cuts in the House-passed economic bill are wimpy. Senator Ron Johnson said President Trump is unserious currently about spending cuts and thinks he can stop the entire process. How do you evaluate those remarks?
Look, the American people want to see this bill. 80% of the American people support this bill, support the tax cuts that are in it. And so,
all of it.
That's what we're seeing right now, that they want
your internal polling says 80% of the American people
that's public polling who 80% of the people,
not just the tax cuts,
78% of Democrats and 81%
the Medicaid
of
cuts,
independents want to see the tax cuts that are going to be put into this bill. It's absolutely essential we get it. We have an inflection point bill here. We're either going to have the largest tax hike in American history or the largest tax cuts in American history. Right now, the Republican Party, with two exceptions in the House, supports the largest tax cuts in history. The Democratic Party, with zero exceptions in the House, voted for the largest tax hikes in American history. And every single Democrat in the Senate has said they're going to vote against this bill.
How about Ron Johnson and Rand Paul and their current criticisms?
They are negotiating right now. Those criticisms are being taken into consideration.
Do you take them seriously?
Yes, absolutely. I think the fact is that the president has said there are going to be changes that are going to be made in the Senate, and that's okay. This is a bill. This is a process. Like we're watching the old Saturday morning cartoon, I'm Just a Bill, playing out in real time, right? And so there is going to be give and take. There's a lot of process to go through with it. But the Republican Party wants to see this bill done because it embodies President Trump's agenda. This is the America First agenda. This is all about making sure that we have tax cuts in a growing economy, that we have security at the southern border, that we have a stronger military. These are all things that the American people broadly support.
Are there any risks for Republicans not passing the Trump economic bill?
Well, I think it's absolutely a critical component of the economic agenda that President Trump is pushing. And obviously, the economy in the number one issue in the 24 election cycle. It'll be the number one issue in the 26 election cycle. So we need to make sure that we have the economy roaring. And that's exactly what it's going to plan. The tax provisions in this bill are absolutely essential. We do not want to see the largest tax hike in American history go into effect. What we want to do is make the Trump tax cuts permanent. We want to see no tax on overtime, no tax on,
tips.
Tips. Thank you. And, look, it's really important for us as an economy.
In that sense, when things were a little dicey on the House side, President Trump used word betrayal if you vote against this. Are you comfortable with that word? He also suggested Republicans who don't support it will be primaried. Are you comfortable with betrayal and primaries?
Well, what I think
as an enforcement mechanism.
Look, this is an American agenda. It's not just President Trump's agenda. It's not just the Republican Party agenda. The American people support this agenda. They want tax cuts. They want a restored economy. They want the southern border to be strong. They want our military and our presence around the world to be strong. So it is something that right now we need every Republican to come into and every Republican to support.
And if they don't, they're betraying the president?
Well, look, I think that it's not just the president right now. This is about the American people. There's a reason that 80% of the American people support these provisions, support this tax bill, and want to see this get to the president's desk.
You're comfortable with betrayal?
I didn't say I'm comfortable with betrayal. What I said was that every Republican needs to understand that this is an American agenda that is going to be very popular in their state. It's going to be very popular in their districts.
How about when the president briefly suggested he was open to raising taxes on those who make more than $2.5 million a year, or removing the loophole for carried interest, which allows hedge fund managers to pay lower taxes than most wage earners in our country? Are you comfortable with those ideas?
Look, what I will say is this. The Congress is going to enact these provisions. They're going to go through the process of making sausage. We're all watching it in real time right now to see what this bill is going to come out to. We need to have a bill that's going to extend the Trump tax cuts. We need no tax on Social Security. We need no tax on overtime. We need no tax on tips. It's going to take a process of multiple bills before we can probably get there. But that is an agenda that the president ran on, that the Congress got their majority on, and the Senate got their majority on. That's where we're going to end up.
Do you think those things would add populist appeal to the bill, raising taxes on the super wealthy?
This bill right now has tremendous populist appeal. That's why it has 80% support. And so I think that what we need to do is continue to focus on the top lines. And to me, the top line is that every single Democrat in the House voted for the largest tax hike in American history on everybody, on the lower class, the middle class, and the rich. The fact that every senator on the Democratic Party has said that they're going to vote against this bill, that is really, truly going against the will of the American people.
They would argue that they're willing to approve the tax cuts, they just want to raise taxes on the wealthy.
But what they have said across the board is they are going to vote against this bill.
I promised you a demographic question. I want to read something to you from one of your favorite newspapers, the New York Times. This weekend it wrote about what are called triple trending counties, counties that have gone in one direction 3 times in a row in the last 3 elections. Quote, 435 counties voted more Democratic in 2024 than did so in 2012, by an average improved margin of 8.8 percentage points. And 2,678 counties became more Republican, by an average of 13.3 percentage points. That's 6 times as many counties moving toward the GOP than toward the Democratic Party, and by a substantially wider margin. First, how did that happen? Second, is it permanent?
I don't think it's permanent. I think that it's very important to understand how it happened, which is that Donald Trump ran on an agenda that was the American agenda. This was, how do you restore the economy? How do you restore the southern border? How do you restore American strength around the world? That's an agenda that the American people wanted to see. As long as Republicans understand their voters and the issues that they care about and put solutions on the table, Republicans will be successful. but they have to continue to do that. Donald Trump went into every community. He went to downtown Milwaukee, downtown Detroit, downtown Philadelphia. He went into the Bronx. He went into downtown Atlanta, and he talked to every single family in every single community about the issues that they cared about. And people saw it. People may not have liked Donald Trump as much as they like other candidates, but they know that he brings results, and that is really where the growth came from.
Elon Musk wrote today that it's time for him to go back 24/7 to his three main companies. Does that mean Doge is over? And does that mean his experiment here in Washington ended without much happening?
Not at all. Doge is absolutely not over. Russ Vought is going to be taking it over. It's extraordinarily...
The budget director.
Yes, and it is absolutely critical that this is a concept that moves forward. When we talk about fighting waste, fraud, and abuse, the president is very serious about fighting waste, fraud, and abuse, and we need to root it out everywhere that we possibly can. We're going to see what the process as we go through budget and appropriations is going to look like to be able to eliminate that out there. But the American people, 75% support eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. This program was absolutely essential. We owe Elon Musk a debt of gratitude for kicking this off and launching it the way that he has.
It hasn't blown up in his face or Tesla's face?
Look, I mean, he didn't do this because of what it was going to do in terms of the stock value for his company, but he needs to get back and he needs to run it. The fact is right now that the American economy and American people are going to be better off for the efforts that he made.
You're from North Carolina. How is Western North Carolina? Parts, as I understand it, I talked to people there, still recovering from Helene. Arkansas, Missouri have recently been hit. How concerned are you about a FEMA that is pulled back to a smaller core and doesn't consider itself the lead disaster response agency in our country?
Well, look, we are going to have a federal emergency response. There is always going to need to be a federal emergency response. But the fact is, in Hurricane Helene, North Carolina got absolutely drilled. 73,000 homes were damaged, 45,000 small businesses were damaged, and the response from FEMA was not what it needed to be. Right? President Trump feels very strongly that the recovery efforts need to be led by the states, and we want to make sure that we have programs in place that are going to empower the states.
State budgets will have room for that?
There's always going to be a dual role for the federal government and the state government, but the states need to be able to step up and make sure that they're helping with recovery. But the federal government will play an important role, no question about it.
RNC Chairman Michael Whatley, it's been a pleasure.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
Please come back.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to the brand new Takeout, episode 2. I want to bring in the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, Ken Martin, who, joins me remotely from Salt Lake City. No disrespect to Salt Lake City, Mr. Chairman, but you're always welcome here on the set. I want to ask you something, not about today, but about when you were the Democratic chairman in Minnesota in 2011. At that time, as I've read, the state party was deeply in debt. It had just lost the state Senate for the first time in 40 years, lost the state House, and a very prominent congressional seat. Everything was collapsing. And then 2012 was a bounce back year for the state Democratic Party. Do you feel you are living through that cycle again?
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, when I came in as chair in 2010, as you mentioned, we had just come out the worst election loss in 50 years for the Minnesota DFL. The morale was low. Donors were fleeing. All of our stakeholders were pissed off and angry about how we actually rebuild. And what it took at that time is for me to actually write a plan, a long-term 10-year plan, to give people a sense not only how we would win in that next upcoming election year, but how we would actually win the future as well. And that's critical because we're in a similar boat right now where the morale is low, where people are frustrated after losing a race that many thought we were sure to win, of course, and the record amount of money spent on our side. It has left people scratching their heads, wondering how do we get out of the wilderness and get ourselves back into power, both in 26, 28, and beyond. And I'm doing the same exact thing, right, which is building a long-term plan, a 10-year plan. Now, Major, one of the things I have to use is a hockey analogy because I'm from Minnesota. And Wayne Gretzky said once that you have to skate to where the puck will be. not where the puck is. And that's what our party has to start doing. That's why I ran for DNC chair, to actually put us on a long-term path to be a majority party, not just win one cycle, but to win each cycle thereafter. And that's what we're doing right now. We're building for the future.
I want to get your impressions about something that may illustrate the starkness of the challenge ahead of you. There's a recent story in the New York Times by a reporter I admire, Shane Goldmacher. I used to work with him at the National Journal. And it talks about a woman named Annette Schenker Osorio, who is a Democratic researcher. And she's conducted 250 focus groups. And what she does is she tries to ask those people in focus groups to label the Republican and the Democratic Party through animals. And this is what it found. Republicans are seen as, quote, apex predators, like lions, tigers, and sharks, beasts that take what they want when they want it. Democrats are typically tagged as tortoises, slugs, or sloths, slow, plodding, passive. How do you digest that?
Well, look, I mean, I've seen similar research, and I'm reminded of something that someone said to me after the 2016 election cycle. They said the Republicans are shameless, but the Democrats are spineless. And what people want to see right now is a Democratic Party actually grow a spine, stand up, and fight like hell for the things they believe in. Actually, an old mentor of mine, Paul Wellstone, who I got my start with, used to say that if you're not willing to fight like hell for the things you believe in, do you really believe in them at all? And that's part of the challenge right now. I mean, last year, there was research that was done that should have been the canary in the coal mine, Major, that showed for the first time ever in modern history that the perceptions of the two political parties has actually changed. The majority of Americans now believe that the Republican Party best represents the interests of the middle class, the working class, and the poor, and the Democratic Party is the party of the wealthy and the elite. We have to do a better job of standing up and fighting like hell for the things we believe in and giving people a sense, especially working people in this country, that we're going to fight for them, their families, and their communities.
That's why you're in Utah right now, isn't it?
Well, look, I mean, Utah is one of the youngest states in the country. It's one of the fastest growing states in the country. It's going to gain a congressional seat after the 2030 census. There's no doubt that this is an emerging target for the Democratic Party and that we can win here. When I ran for the DNC position, I said, we need to get the DNC out of DC. Someone said, well, what do you mean you're going to move the headquarters out of DC? No, it's changing the mindset that if we're going to be a national party, we can't just be a party focused on 7 battleground states and a handful of congressional seats. We can't just be a party focused on building federal power. We have to be a party that's focused holistically, building power up and down the ballot, from school board races to state legislative races to governor's races, all the way up to the White House. We need to be a party that's competing at every level and in every state, including red states like Utah. Again, we will meet that moment in terms of winning the future once we start expanding the map and realizing that there are opportunities throughout this country if we're willing to take advantage of them.
Now, Mr. Chairman, you know as well as I do, most Americans are not paying close attention to the ongoing stranglehold or conversation that's going on within your party, within the Democratic National Committee itself, about 2 vice chairs. David Hogg is one of them. Why should he no longer be a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee? And isn't that symptomatic of a kind of internal strife that you have to resolve one way or the other before you can go on to do all these other ambitious things?
Well, look, I don't know who's suggesting that he shouldn't be a vice chair of the DNC. We need David's voice. We need Malcolm's voice. We need young people in our party. It's really critical that we make sure that we have their energy, their voices, their leadership in the DNC. I think it's important part of democracy that we have primaries. It's an important part of holding candidates and elected officials accountable. All those pieces, I agree with David Hogg on. But the one thing that I've been a longtime proponent of, and I ran on a whole reform package when I ran for DNC chair to democratize the DNC, is the idea that party leaders, party bosses should not be putting on their thumbs on the scale and actually picking winners or losers. They should stay out and let primary voters, with no interference from party leaders, make those decisions, and then we fight like hell for whoever the nominee is. You know, in 2016, right after that election, I was the author of the superdelegate reform, and I brought the first neutrality pledge to our party because, again, I believe it's important that the supporters of candidates feel like they have a voice in this process and that they weren't pushed aside by some party boss who's trying to make that decision for them. So this is not a newfound belief for me. I believe party officers and party leaders should stay out and let primary voters make those decisions. And so this was not a reaction to David Hogg or to anyone else for that matter, Major. This is something I campaigned on long before David Hogg was ever in the race and long before David Hogg was ever in politics. This is a position that I've supported and pushed through the Democratic National Party.
Ken, you talked at the top about fighting like hell. Michael Whatley, the Republican National Committee chairman, was on the set here yesterday and said 80% of the country supports the Trump tax bill. He was referring to extending the 2017 tax cuts, but even if that's an exaggeration, one of Trump's top pollsters, Tony Fabrizio, has numbers showing that about 65 to high 50s support almost every component part of this bill, including work requirements for Medicaid. Are you going to fight like hell against all those things, even though Trump's pollster has numbers saying that they have majority support in our country?
Well, Major, you know this. You've been in this business for a long time, and everyone's got a poll to show their own point. And, you know, so I'm not going to believe Trump's pollsters. We see numbers just the opposite. There's great buyer's remorse in this country right now with what Donald Trump and his administration are doing to this country already. In just 4 short months, they've completely destroyed the fabric of what's made this country great for so many years. But let me speak specifically to this bill that they're pushing forward right now. As the son of a teen mom who had me when she was 15 years old, who raised 4 kids by herself, you know, by the time she was 20, she struggled mightily. And if it wasn't for programs like Medicaid, I wouldn't have had health care. If it wasn't programs like SNAP, I wouldn't have had food benefits. And so it is the height of callousness and depravity to actually put forward a budget bill as this that would actually take food away from starving children, that would actually force seniors out of nursing homes, that would actually take health care away from the handicapped and the disabled. For what? To give a tax break to those who already have the most amongst us, to the richest billionaires in our country? You're damn right we're going to fight like hell. This is an immoral document. We are better than this as a country. We know we need a social safety net to protect the most vulnerable in our communities. And Trump and his minions, all they could care about is those who already have the most in our communities. And I can tell you what, they're going to pay a deep, deep price at the polls next year. Much like in 2017 when they came after the ACA and the American voters sent them a message, the same thing's coming. So guess what, Donald Trump? Guess what, Michael Whatley? Keep going down this road. Keep believing your polls, and we're going to keep working hard to make sure that you're out of a job next November.
DNC Chair Ken Martin coming to us from Salt Lake City. Mr. Chairman, you're always welcome here at the Conversation Corner at the Takeout. Thanks so much.